certain assets. Controversy is very costly, and how does this affect your estate plan? Hi everyone, my name's Leah Boston. I'm an estate planning attorney here in the state of Maryland and owner of Law Office of Leah Boston LLC. I draft wills, trusts, and I talk about long-term life care planning with people like you. I want to share some information that may not be readily known to individuals. When people come into my office and I'm drafting will-based plans for them, I always like to remind my clients, and also just speaking generally, that a last will and testament is not going to cover everything. So what do I mean by that? A last will and testament, of course, takes effect upon your death. However, there are certain assets that the will is just not going to speak to. For starters, the will is not going to speak to jointly owned property, meaning if you have a property that is jointly owned, as in joint tenants with the right of survivorship, upon your death, that property is going to pass by operation of law to the other surviving joint tenant. Also, if you have any bank accounts that are jointly owned, if you pass away, that bank account is going to be taken over by the surviving joint owner. Additionally, if you have any sort of beneficiary designations on any policy accounts, life insurance, 401k, stocks, bonds, bank accounts, etc., please remember that these accounts are going to be controlled by the beneficiary designation that you have laid out, not in the will. So if you would like to speak to these accounts in the will, it's important to ensure that there is consistency. If you've named a certain person as your beneficiary designation on this account, and if you want to speak to it in the will, make sure that you name that exact person. If you have any sort of controversy, please know that whatever designation that you have for any beneficiaries or any joint owners, that's going to control, because that's going to be what passes by operation of law. It becomes very frustrating and may even delay the probate process by people trying to contest, well, they wrote in their will that they wanted me to have this life insurance policy, but another person is named. Please know that anyone that is named by any sort of beneficiary designation or any sort of joint ownership is going to control. A last will and testament does not control any sort of jointly owned accounts or any sort of operation by law paperwork that's going to pass by a beneficiary designation. A will only controls solely owned probate assets. These types of assets are actually made to not go through the probate process and pass directly to the beneficiary or pass directly to the surviving joint owner. So just be mindful of that when you're creating a will, and to ensure that you have consistency throughout, because consistency eliminates chaos, eliminates crying, and it eliminates confusion. If you have any more questions, leave a comment below. Otherwise, if you're ready to get started and you are a Maryland resident, please contact my office at www.leahbostonlaw.com, and I'm happy to help get you started. See you in the next video.